Good afternoon, Bookfighters. It is Tuesday, February 14th, which means it's Valentine's Day, so I just quickly like to preface the video by saying Happy Valentine's Day. There we go. So basically what it seems like the discussion happening right now is kind of become like a Looking for Alaska versus The Fault in Our Stars thing, which I'm not entirely comfortable with because I really don't think it's fair to The Fault in Our Stars and Looking for Alaska to compare them so closely because they're not about the same things. But because Katie asked questions about it and everything, then we're gonna talk about that. So Katie basically asked like if Looking for Alaska is your favorite, which it is for me, like why? And Looking for Alaska for me, it came to me when I was at a very specific point in my life and I had a very immediate and very deep emotional connection to Miles and what Miles was going through. And so reading it then and rereading it since then always brings me back to that place, but not in a bad way. Had I read Looking for Alaska when I wasn't going through something like that, would it have been one of my favorites? Maybe, maybe not. But as it stands, it still is. The Fault in Our Stars is one of those books where, regardless of when I read it, it still has a very strong emotional effect on me, but not as personally related because I've never met anyone who's passed away from cancer. Knock on wood. So it's not the same reaction, though I do think that it is the best book of John's. My personal favoritism for Looking for Alaska has nothing to do with that. I think it's his best written. I know he worked very hard on it and everything, and there are lots of problems with Looking for Alaska that you can look at objectively, but completely on a personal level, Looking for Alaska is my favorite. But as John's books as a group, I think The Fault in Our Stars is the best one, but it's not my personal favorite of his. Does that make any sense? I feel like I mean, obviously it's been proven that I am apparently the only one. I'm the freak of the group because Looking for Alaska is my favorite, but I really still love The Fault in Our Stars. And what Katie said about how she felt about Looking for Alaska, where you read it, it's worth reading once, but not really wanting to read it again, although it was good once, is how I feel about Paper Towns. So apparently I'm just the weird one. But yeah, so there's that. There's something about John Green books that let me kind of drop that reader mode. I completely fall out of reader mode and I just become invested in the story, and it's not so much like reading a book and everything as it is just experiencing it. And the things that happen in The Fault in Our Stars, to me, it's not about, you know, predicting who's gonna die. I honestly thought pretty much most of the way through the book that the book was going to be an Imperial Affliction and that Hazel was going to die mid-narrative. And it got to a part where, spoilers again if you haven't read The Fault in Our Stars, when Augustus dies, the very specific part where he's in the car, and that part I had to stop reading. And I was on the airplane, like I said in my last video, and I just sat there and I had to emotion dump like into my notebook because I just had so many feelings. I had all the feelings about that, and I honestly, I didn't want to keep reading, and I never once felt like I was reading just a book about kids with cancer. It was like it's opening a window into these people's lives and just like experiencing it from an outside perspective, and only John Green books have ever had that effect on me. I obviously had a very strong connection with the characters in The Fault in Our Stars, and I really enjoyed the book. And yeah. I have not thought of any punishment ideas for Kalinda yet, but I will keep thinking. And hopefully I will see you tomorrow, Kalinda, so we don't have to think of two. Okay. And the rest of you I will see next week. Fare thee well, Bookfighters.